The General wasn't just a comedy, it was a high-speed, high-stakes act of cinematic insanity, a film where its star nearly broke his neck for a laugh and a production company nearly went bankrupt filming it. Behind the slapstick chases and the stoic heroics lay a story of real-life tragedy, financial catastrophe, and artistic genius that was so far ahead of its time, audiences had no idea what to do with it. What audiences saw as a charming, silent adventure was, in reality, a monument to physical courage. A film that used the real horrors of war as a backdrop for some of the most dangerous stunts ever put on film. Today, we're boarding the train for the full, unvarnished truth behind this silent masterpiece. Here are 20 weird facts about the General, and stick around for a bonus fact about the film's copyright that allowed it to be seen by millions for free. Number 20, Keaton's near-fatal neck injury. The film's most iconic stunt, where Buster Keaton sits on the coupling rods of a moving train and uses a railroad tie to dislodge a splintered board from the track, wasn't just a brilliant piece of physical comedy. It was a moment of near-fatal stupidity that resulted in a real-life injury Keaton didn't know the extent of for decades. During the take, the wooden beam he was sitting on shifted violently, throwing him off balance. He landed hard on his head and neck on the gravel ballast beside the track. In excruciating pain, but driven by his perfectionism, he got up, finished the scene, and continued filming for the rest of the day. It wasn't until years later that a doctor, examining him for another issue, discovered he had fractured a vertebra in his neck during that fall. The injury had partially healed, leaving him with chronic neck pain for the rest of his life. What makes this so shocking is that the film's most lighthearted moment of ingenuity was, in reality, a life-threatening accident. The laughter it generates is forever tinged with the knowledge that the audience is watching a man unknowingly risking paralysis for a gag, a testament to Keaton's unbelievable dedication and the terrifying physical price he paid for their entertainment. Number 19. The film's financial catastrophe. The General wasn't just a movie, it was a financial black hole that nearly destroyed its creator. Made in 1926 for a staggering $750,000, over $12 million today, it was one of the most expensive comedies ever produced. United Artists, the studio releasing it, was horrified by the budget and Keaton's obsessive, perfectionist approach, which involved building full-scale towns, buying actual trains, and shooting on location for months. When the film was released, it was a complete box office bomb. Audiences, accustomed to faster-paced comedies with more slapstick and less plot, found it slow and confusing. The film's failure was so total that it nearly bankrupted Buster Keaton's independent production company and sent his career into a downward spiral from which it never fully recovered. The film wasn't just a creative risk. It was a commercial disaster of epic proportions, a grand artistic statement that the public of 1927 was simply not ready for, a financial albatross around Keaton's neck for the rest of his career. Number 18. The film was based on a true, tragic story. The film's central plot, where Union soldiers steal a Confederate train to rescue it from raiders, wasn't just a clever comedy premise, it was directly inspired by a real and dramatic event from the Civil War known as the Great Locomotive Chase of April 12, 1862. In this incident, Union volunteers, led by a civilian named James J. Andrews, hijacked a Confederate train named the General and drove it north toward Chattanooga, tearing up telegraph lines and destroying track along the way. While the real mission ended in the capture and execution of most of the raiders, Keaton and his writers took the basic premise and transformed it into a comedy. What makes this so fascinating is that Keaton was using a real, tragic story of war and espionage as the foundation for his slapstick masterpiece. The film isn't just fantasy, it's a historical reimagining, a fictional what-if that honors the real event's audacity while turning its tragic outcome into a triumphant, comedic victory for its hero. Number 17. Keaton's creative independence. The General wasn't just a film starring Buster Keaton, it was his film in every sense of the word. By 1926, Keaton had formed his own production company, Buster Keaton Productions, giving him an unprecedented level of creative control for a star of his era. He wasn't just the actor and director, he was the auteur, the driving force behind every aspect of the project. He co-wrote the script, oversaw the art direction, and had final cut. This independence allowed him to pursue his singular vision without the interference of a studio system that often stifled creativity. It allowed him to spend a fortune on authenticity and to take the huge risks that defined the film. This autonomy is what makes The General so personal and so brilliant. It isn't a studio product. It is a pure, unfiltered vision of a comedic genius at the height of his powers, a film that could only have been made by a man who had the freedom and the courage to follow his own strange and wonderful muse, no matter the cost. Number 16. The famous rocking horse gag. One of the film's most memorable and surreal images is the scene where a wooden horse, used as a prop by the Union soldiers, rocks back and forth on the burning bridge as if it is alive. This wasn't just a piece of random surrealism. It was a cleverly engineered and dangerous practical effect. The prop department built a special rocking horse with a weighted base, which was then placed on a specially constructed section of the bridge that was being shaken by off-camera crew members. The effect is uncanny and hilarious, creating a moment of pure, dreamlike comedy in the midst of the action. What makes this so impressive is the ingenuity involved. In an era before CGI, creating such a bizarre and believable illusion required immense mechanical creativity and a willingness to think outside the box. The rocking horse wasn't just a gag, it was a small masterpiece of practical effects, a testament to the inventive spirit of Keaton's team and their ability to make the impossible look real on screen. Number 15. Marian Mack's real-life ankle injury. The film's leading lady, Marian Mack, who played the love interest Annabelle Lee, wasn't just acting when her character sprains her ankle, she was reenacting a very real and painful injury she had suffered just before filming began. During a vacation, Mack had slipped and severely twisted her ankle, an injury that was still healing when production started. Keaton, ever the opportunist, decided to write her injury into the script, turning her real-life misfortune into a major plot point that strands her character with the stolen train. For the entire shoot, Mack had to wear a supportive brace and perform her scenes while in genuine pain. What makes this so darkly ironic is that her character's fictional injury, which drives much of the plot's tension, was a source of real discomfort for the actress. Her limp and her pained expressions on screen are not just acting. They are a window into the real-life suffering of an actress who had to perform through her injury for the sake of the film, adding a layer of authentic vulnerability to her performance. Number 14. The film was rescued from obscurity by foreign critics. Upon its release in 1927, The General was a critical and commercial failure in America, dismissed by many reviewers as slow and overlong. For decades, it was considered a noble but flawed entry in Keaton's filmography. However, in the 1950s and 60s, critics in France, particularly those associated with the French New Wave, discovered the film and hailed it as a masterpiece of cinematic art. Directors like François Truffaut and Jean-Luc Godard praised its formal perfection, its blend of comedy and drama, and Keaton's genius as a visual storyteller. This critical reevaluation in Europe slowly trickled back to the United States, where film scholars and a new generation of filmmakers began to reassess its brilliance. The film wasn't just a flop that became a cult classic. It was a film that had to be saved from the dustbin of history by the very people who would go on to revolutionize cinema, a testament to its timeless power that transcended its initial reception. Number 13. The burning of the Rock Bridge trestle. The film's spectacular climax, which features the collapse of a massive railroad trestle into a river, wasn't a miniature effect or a matte painting. It was a full-scale, practical effect of breathtaking audacity. The production built a huge wooden trestle over the Roe River in Oregon and then set it on fire. The scene where the train, driven by Keaton, speeds across the burning bridge just before it collapses is one of the most iconic and thrilling sequences in silent film history. The heat from the fire was so intense that it damaged the camera lens and created a shimmering, dreamlike quality in the footage. What makes this so incredible is the sheer scale and danger of the stunt. There were no second takes. Once they lit the bridge on fire, they had one chance to get the shot. The collapse wasn't just special effects. It was a real, destructive event captured on film, a moment of pure, unrepeatable cinematic magic that stands as a monument to practical filmmaking at its most ambitious and dangerous. Number 12. The film's surprising anti-war sentiment. Beneath its adventure comedy surface, The General carries a surprisingly potent anti-war message. The film portrays both the Union and Confederate soldiers not as glorious heroes, but as bumbling, incompetent fools. The Confederate raiders are easily tricked, and the Union pursuers are led by a bumbling, pompous officer who is more concerned with his appearance than with strategy. The real enemy in the film is not the opposing army, but the absurdity and incompetence of war itself. Keaton's character, Johnny Gray, is not a gung-ho patriot. He's a railroad engineer who just wants his train back and his girl. His heroism is personal, not ideological. This cynical, humanizing portrayal of military men was quite forward-thinking for 1926 and gives the film a timeless quality. The film isn't just a comedy, it's a subtle but powerful statement on the folly of war, a message that resonated with audiences disillusioned by World War I and continues to feel relevant today. Number 11. The film had almost no dialogue intertitles. One of the most striking features of The General is its incredible sparseness of intertitles, the title cards used to convey dialogue in silent films. The entire movie contains less than 50 intertitles. Keaton was a firm believer in visual storytelling, and he trusted his audience to understand the story through action, expression, and situation rather than through words. This choice forces the viewer to engage more deeply with the film's visual language and creates a pure, cinematic experience that is not bogged down by exposition. The story is told almost entirely through images and movement. This minimalist approach to dialogue was revolutionary for its time and is a key reason why the film feels so modern and timeless. The film doesn't just tell a story, it shows it, with a confidence in the power of the moving image that is the hallmark of a true cinematic master. Number 10. The honey cake was real. In one of the film's most charming scenes, Annabelle Lee bakes a cake for Johnny, which he later shares with his fellow Union soldiers. This wasn't just a prop. The cake was real, baked fresh on set by the prop department. The scene where the soldiers fight over the last piece was largely improvised, with Keaton and the other actors reacting spontaneously to the delicious-looking dessert. What makes this detail so endearing is that it adds a layer of authentic, tactile reality to the film. The cake isn't just a symbol of Annabelle's affection, it's a real, edible object that the actors could interact with, making their comical greed feel more genuine and relatable. This commitment to practical, tangible details, even in a small scene, is a hallmark of Keaton's filmmaking and a key ingredient in the film's enduring charm. Number 9. The film's historical inaccuracies were deliberate. While based on a real event, The General takes significant liberties with history for the sake of comedy and narrative clarity. The real Great Locomotive Chase involved Union spies in civilian clothes, not soldiers in uniform. The film's decision to dress Keaton and his sidekicks in full Union Army uniforms was a deliberate choice to create a clear visual distinction between the two sides and to simplify the conflict for the audience. The film also condenses the timeline of the chase and invents the romantic subplot with Annabelle Lee. These historical liberties weren't mistakes, they were calculated decisions made to serve the story and the comedy. The film isn't a documentary, it's a romantic comedy that uses history as a jumping-off point for its own fictional narrative. A choice that purists might question, but which undeniably makes for a better movie. Number 8. The child actors were not professionals. The young boy who plays the Union drummer boy, a character who has several key moments in the film, was not a seasoned child actor. He was Frank Jr. Coughlin, a local Oregon boy who was cast on location because he looked the part. His performance is natural and unforced, but it lacks the polish of a professional child actor like Jackie Coogan or Baby Peggy. This gives his scenes a raw, authentic quality that adds to the film's documentary-like feel. Similarly, many of the other bit players and extras were local people, not professional actors. Keaton often preferred using non-professionals for small roles to achieve a more naturalistic look and feel. This decision wasn't just a casting choice, it was a directing choice, a way to ground the film's more fantastical elements in a layer of believable, everyday reality, making the comedy feel more spontaneous and less performed. Number 7. The film's original ending was changed. The film's ending, where Johnny is commissioned as a lieutenant and gets a kiss from Annabelle in front of his troops, was not the original scripted conclusion. Early drafts of the script had a slightly different, more comedic ending. After Johnny is made an officer, Annabelle's Confederate father, who has come to accept him, tries to give him his blessing. However, the father is still a staunch Confederate and is horrified to learn that Johnny is being commissioned into the Union Army. The film's original ending had the father trying to stop the commission, leading to a final comical mix-up. This ending was changed to the more straightforwardly triumphant one we see now, likely to provide a cleaner, more satisfying conclusion for the audience and to avoid any political ambiguity in the film's final moments. The change wasn't just a rewrite, it was a simplification that smoothed over the film's final, potentially more complex political edges. Number 6. The film's co-director was uncredited. While Buster Keaton is the sole credited director on The General, he received significant help from his longtime collaborator, Clyde Bruckman. Bruckman was a veteran director who co-directed many of Keaton's features, including The Navigator and Steamboat Bill, Jr. He was a master of technique and logistics who helped manage the complex production and oversaw the second unit. However, due to Keaton's powerful creative control over his films, Bruckman's contributions were often downplayed or went uncredited. On The General, Bruckman's role was crucial in managing the large-scale action sequences and ensuring the massive production stayed on schedule. The film wasn't just a one-man show. It was a collaboration, even if the credits don't reflect it. Bruckman was the practical, grounding force that allowed Keaton the freedom to be the visionary artist, a partnership that was essential to the film's success but has been largely lost to history. Number 5. The film's score was synchronized live. In the silent era, films were often accompanied by live musical scores performed in the theater. However, for The General, composer William Axt wrote a specific musical score that was synchronized to the action on screen. This was a more sophisticated approach than just having a pianist play generic mood music. The score included specific themes for characters and leitmotifs for key actions, like the chase sequences. Musicians in the theater would be given sheet music and cue sheets to ensure the music matched the film's narrative beats perfectly. This created a much more immersive and emotionally resonant viewing experience. The music wasn't just background noise, it was an integral part of the storytelling, a character in its own right that guided the audience's emotions and heightened the drama and comedy in perfect sync with the action on screen. Number 4. The real locomotives post-film life. The two main stars of the film, the trains named the General and Texas, were actual vintage locomotives from the 1870s. After filming was completed, the trains were not scrapped. The General was eventually restored and is now a prized artifact of railroad history, on permanent display at the Southern Museum of Travel and Popular Culture in Chattanooga, Tennessee, very close to where the historical events that inspired the film took place. The Texas had a more complicated journey. It was sold to a railroad in British Columbia, where it worked for many years before being retired and eventually acquired by the Oregon Railroad Museum in Portland, Oregon. The fact that these iron horses from the film survived and are now museum pieces is a testament to their enduring legacy and the film's commitment to authenticity. They aren't just props, they are living history, tangible links to the real and cinematic past. Number 3. Keaton's stunt double was his brother-in-law. While Buster Keaton performed the vast majority of his own incredibly dangerous stunts, there were a few moments where a double was used for wider shots or particularly risky actions. Keaton's go-to stunt double was often his brother-in-law, Harry Houdini, the world-famous magician and escape artist. Houdini, who was married to Keaton's sister, shared Keaton's love of physical comedy and was a skilled athlete. While his participation in The General is not as well documented as in some of Keaton's other films, family accounts and film historians note that Houdini was occasionally on set to help out. The idea of the world's greatest magician secretly doubling for the world's greatest comedy star in one of the greatest action films ever made is almost too fantastic to believe. The stunts weren't just performed by a double, they were sometimes performed by a legend, adding another layer of incredible behind-the-scenes lore to the film. Number 2. The film's influence on future generations. The General has had a profound and lasting influence on generations of filmmakers, from Orson Welles to Jackie Chan to Park Chan-wook. Welles reportedly screened it repeatedly for the cast and crew of Citizen Kane to demonstrate the power of visual storytelling. Jackie Chan has cited it as a major inspiration for his own blend of action and comedy, and his film Railroad Tigers is a direct homage. Director Park Chan-wook, known for films like Oldboy, has praised the General's masterful pacing and visual clarity. The film's famous chase sequences have been studied and imitated in countless action films. The film's influence isn't just historical. It's a living legacy, a cinematic blueprint for how to blend action, comedy, and character into a perfect, seamless whole. It's a film that continues to teach and inspire directors a century later, a true masterclass in filmmaking that never goes out of style. Number 1. It fell into the public domain for decades. For a large part of the 20th century, The General was trapped in a legal gray area. The film's copyright was not renewed after its initial 28-year term, and it fell into the public domain in 1955. This meant that anyone could legally copy and distribute the film without paying royalties. This had a devastating effect on the quality of available versions for decades, as countless companies released cheap, low-quality prints with terrible scores and poor transfers. It also meant that the film was often shown on television in substandard condition. It wasn't until the late 20th and early 21st centuries, with the advent of DVD and Blu-ray, that film restoration experts were able to go back to original nitrate prints and create the high-quality versions we enjoy today. The film's public domain status wasn't just a legal quirk. It was a curse that nearly destroyed its visual legacy, a dark period where a masterpiece was treated like disposable public property, a fate it has thankfully and finally escaped. Bonus fact: the film's original negative was lost in a fire. The original camera negative of The General, the master copy from which all other prints were made, was tragically lost in a fire at MGM's vaults in the 1960s. This was a common fate for many silent films, as the unstable nitrate film stock was highly flammable. The loss of the original negative meant that for years, the best available copies were several generations removed from the original camera negative, resulting in a significant loss of detail and clarity. The beautiful, pristine versions of the film we see today on Blu-ray are the result of a painstaking restoration process that involves sourcing and combining the best existing prints from archives all over the world. The fire wasn't just an accident, it was a cultural catastrophe that almost erased a cinematic masterpiece. The fact that we can still see the general in such stunning quality today is a testament to the tireless work of film archivists and restorationists who worked like detectives to piece this classic back together, frame by frame, ensuring that Keaton's genius was not lost to the flames forever. The general endures not just as a great comedy, but as a perfect film. A flawless machine of cinematic storytelling where every gag, every stunt, and every cut serves the narrative with breathtaking precision. It is a film born from a place of immense personal and financial struggle, a testament to Buster Keaton's unyielding vision and his incredible courage. The darkness behind its creation, the near-fatal injuries, the financial ruin, the initial rejection only serves to make its brilliance shine even brighter. It is a film that asks for nothing and gives everything, a pure, unadulterated piece of cinematic joy that reminds us of the limitless possibilities of the medium. It is quite simply perfect, and in the world of cinema, perfection is the only thing that truly lasts.